My name is Grace. I'm 32 years old. I divorced my ex-husband due to his infidelity 3 years ago, but I recently just got remarried. Thanks to my current husband, I'm living happily every day. However, because these days are so blissful, sometimes I can't help but recall the painful memories from the past. My ex-husband was emotionally abusive and treated me like a housemaid. Despite being tired from my own job, he dumped all the housework on me. If there was even a piece of trash on the floor, he'd yell at me. He wouldn't be satisfied unless there were at least 5 dishes for dinner. And if I were to ever serve him any less, he'd leave his food untouched. I'll never forget the time he got mad at me for serving him prepped meals. And then he'd munch on potato chips. Of course, cleaning up the crumbs he dropped on the floor was also my job. Even when I protested, "What's the point of a wife who doesn't do housework?" He'd just sneer. He kept on uttering words that belittled me, gradually eroding my self-esteem. Before we got married, he wasn't like this at all. Around the time I was fed up with this life, my ex-husband demanded a divorce. He had a mistress. He was cheating on me. He wouldn't tell me who the other person was, and I didn't care. That's how exhausted I was. Fine, but in exchange, I'll take alimony. By getting him to pay the amount of alimony I proposed, I closed the curtains on my short 2-year marriage. I wonder how Nancy is doing. As I was packing up to move, I paused and mused out loud. Nancy is my best friend since high school. After the divorce, she listened to me and encouraged me a lot. Once I move, I think I'll invite Nancy for some coffee. I haven't even had the chance to tell her about my remarriage because I was so busy with preparations and paperwork. With the move coinciding with the registration of my new marriage, only my close family knows about my remarriage. I owe a lot to Nancy, so I have to properly inform her. I should think about these pleasant things, not the painful ones. Changing my mood, I started humming a tune and resumed packing. 2 months after moving, I was enjoying my afternoon tea while browsing a magazine. Now that I've settled into my new job and gotten used to the area, I've started thinking seriously about meeting up with Nancy. Just looking for recommended restaurants and cafes is fun. First, I need to get in touch and check our schedules. It's been quite some time since we last met, and I was secretly feeling nervous. Just as I was about to grab my phone to send Nancy a text, the doorbell rang. Since I had just moved in and didn't know anyone, I figured it must be someone soliciting something. But when I checked the door, there was a police officer. I tilted my head, wondering if there was some sort of incident, and opened the front door. "There have been multiple reports that you've been stalking a certain man. Do you have any idea about this?" Caught off guard by the unexpected visitor, I was at a loss for words. Apparently, almost every day, the man received letters crammed with the words, "I love you," among other annoyances hinting at a romantic pursuit. I had just moved into this neighborhood and suggested it could be a case of mistaken identity, but it seems I have no choice but to verify it, as the complainant has specifically named me as the perpetrator. I tried asking who the complainant was, but the officer could only apologize and bow his head. "I'm sorry, we've received several complaints, and I just came to confirm, so I can't disclose the complainant's name yet," he said. I was perplexed, but I understood that this was the officer's job. I had to reassure myself. Anyway, I've done nothing wrong, so I need to stand my ground. Finally that day, they seemed to understand that I had just moved here and said, "We will come again to report if we find out anything," before the officers left. After that, I dove into my bed in the bedroom. I fluttered my legs and pressed my face into the pillow, groaning. The fact that someone had named me was creepy, and an indescribable discomfort enveloped me. As I was wondering why and how this could have happened, I noticed the sun had already begun to set. I had planned to call Nancy, but I was in no mood anymore. I let out a heavy sigh and forced myself to get up to take in the laundry. I was deep in thought about what had happened the day before. After the police left, I discussed it with my husband when he came home, and he cheered me up, saying it must be some sort of misunderstanding. Thanks to him, I was able to regain some energy, but when my husband went to work and I was left alone, my melancholy mood came back. Just then, my phone rang, and an unfamiliar number was displayed on the screen. I could have ignored it, but I had a bad feeling, so I answered the call. "Grace, it's been a while." a familiar voice said, and I held my breath. It was my ex-husband, Ray. Ray seemed to laugh at my silence. I heard you still haven't admitted to stalking me. I'm disgusted by the police, even though I told them to investigate thoroughly, he said. At that moment, I realized that the incident the day before was caused by my ex-husband. So you are the one who made that strange complaint to the police? I asked, to which my husband affirmed, yes. You moved close to me because you still have feelings for me, right? Everyone around me is surprised by this too, he continued, misunderstanding the situation. My ex-husband, Ray, always overflowing with an odd sense of confidence, irritates me more than he knows. I can just tell he's smirking on the other end of the phone. It seemed like he had told everyone around him that his ex-wife was stalking him. Me? Stalking my ex-husband? That's ridiculous. The painful memories from the past came flooding back, and even though I tried to maintain my composure, I could feel my blood boiling. It's been 3 years now. What are you talking about? Besides, I'm remarried. I responded strongly, but my ex-husband just laughed as if he didn't believe me. If the police can't settle this, then we have to do it ourselves, he said, suggesting a face-to-face meeting. The place he chose was a diner. Fine, I have nothing to hide, I finally agreed. Angry as I was, I responded to the call and headed to the local diner. In retrospect, I admit that it was rather thoughtless of me. Upon arriving at the diner, I found my ex-husband Ray waiting at the entrance. He was different from the old days. Dressed in a suit even I could tell was of good quality. Grace, have you gotten prettier somehow? His scent, a fragrance of cologne, wafted from him as he studied me intently. Don't even, I retorted, frowning, to which Ray simply shrugged his shoulders. Same old Grace, still lacking in charm, he remarked. I swallowed a retort and trailed behind Ray. When we arrived at the table he had already reserved, I was shocked at the unexpected person seated there. Nancy? What are you doing here? Yes, it was my best friend Nancy, who was seated there. Ray and Nancy exchanged glances and shared a smirk. Nancy and I got remarried. Don't be jealous just because I'm happy, Ray said, putting his arm around Nancy's shoulder. His arm was adorned with an expensive, gleaming watch that seemed out of place. Oh, this? I'm a CEO now, you see. Thanks to Nancy, of course. Ray had apparently established a company with the help of Nancy's parents after our divorce. It seemed the business was doing well and had become stable. Honestly, I didn't care about that. What stunned me was the word remarriage. Nancy, who knew how badly I was treated, remarried this man? Seeing my confusion, Nancy cheerfully said, When you invited me to your wedding, I was so surprised. Such a wonderful man like Ray, with you? I never really liked you from the beginning, you see. You were always the center of everyone's attention. So I decided to pretend to be your best friend and take you down one day. With these words, Nancy smiled without remorse. Every time I met Ray, we joked that we met in the wrong order, she said, cuddling up to Ray happily. Looking at Nancy's happy face made me feel nauseous. She had been there to comfort me after my divorce and listen quietly to all my grievances. But now, I realized that she must have been listening with a vile expression like she had now. With a triumphant look on her face, Nancy started talking to me. She told me about how she fell in love with Ray, my ex-husband, at our wedding. She confessed that she sneakily gave him her contact details on the day of the ceremony and started pursuing him. Ray, she said, quickly became infatuated with her. The most shocking revelation was that Nancy had been encouraging Ray to emotionally abuse me. No wonder I felt Ray's personality had suddenly changed after we got married. The two of them had been enjoying my suffering, and I had been oblivious. You wouldn't give up, so in the end, we made Ray pay some money and demand a divorce, Nancy said, sipping her orange juice with a look of exhaustion. The alimony that Ray paid me was apparently funded by Nancy. Something I learned for the first time. Now, to the point. Could you please stop stalking Ray? We were surprised when we saw you the other day, but to think you moved here just to stalk Ray? It's been 3 years since the divorce, and it's really creepy. We're happily married and enjoying our life, unlike you, Grace. So just give up, will you? From the way Nancy was talking, it seemed she had seen me around and realized that I had moved here. Moreover, she was convinced that I had moved here to stalk Ray. Well, let her believe what she wants. That was the least of my worries right now. I'm standing in front of this man and woman, holding myself back from letting my anger get the best of me. I state clearly, I am not stalking anyone, and I am certainly not interested in a man like you. With that, I rise from my seat. I can hear Nancy's laughter behind me, but I don't bother to look back. Almost 2 months have passed since then. I received a call from Ray. I had been expecting it, so I answer. Ray is in a panic on the other end of the line, and I can't help but smirk, because I already knew what went down. So, it seems you really were the victim of a stalker. But it turns out it wasn't me, but your current mistress, I inform him. Apparently, Ray had remarried Nancy and was having an affair again. As a result, his fling had developed strong feelings for him and turned into a stalker. That's the truth. Ray, looking shocked by my words, stammers out an explanation. Turns out he knew that the stalker was his mistress. But if Nancy found out and they divorced, he'd lose the support of her parents. He overheard Nancy saying that I had moved into the area and decided to frame me as the stalker to deceive her. According to him, it was Nancy's idea to name me as the stalker to the police and to call me to the diner. Lies built on lies, leading to this situation. It's so typical of Ray. I'm sorry I framed you as the stalker, but you didn't have to do this! I hear the agony in his voice. It sounds like he's in the middle of a real mess. From the other end of the phone, I can hear pounding on a door and the voice of a woman who seems to be Nancy. He must be barricading himself in his room. It's pathetic. I simply told Nancy the truth, out of regard for our old friendship, I explain. Ray's this probably refers to the photo I sent Nancy. Please expect a claim for damages for the affair. I wrote a note attached to it. The photo shows Ray's mistress engaging in stalking, and another scene of Ray walking arm in arm with the stalker into a hotel. I'm shocked that you'd go to a hotel while you're still being harassed, I say, sounding flabbergasted. I had no choice! She threatened to tell Nancy to divorce me if I didn't meet her. As for how I got such a photo, is all thanks to my husband. My current husband runs a private detective agency. He recently set up his own office, and we moved to this area. However, I am feeling mixed emotions and guilty that the first job after opening his office involves my ex-husband. My husband managed to find the real stalker of Ray in about a month, and secured solid evidence of Ray's affair with the stalker. I can't thank him enough. By the way, expect a claim for damages from both you and Nancy, I tell him. I hear Ray make a bewildered noise. You knew who the real culprit was, yet you named me to the police as the stalker? And on top of that, you spread rumors about it. Just how low can you go? But I caught my ex-husband Ray at a loss for words, and I pressed on. I was just about to forget our married life. I'm gonna make you pay for reopening my wounds. Right after I heard Ray's pitiful whimper, there came a loud noise and a woman's angry shout from the other end of the line. It seemed like Nancy had broken down the door and entered the room. I heard her ask, "Who were you sneaking around talking to?" And then the voice on the phone switched to Nancy. She must have grabbed the phone from Ray. "Who are you? That stalker chick?" "No, it's Grace." Nancy didn't calm down, even when she found out it was me on the phone with Ray. She continued to rant out. She was apparently angry about being asked to pay compensation for the affair. "Don't kid yourself! Why on earth should I have to pay for compensation now?" I told her what I'd learned from the lawyer who was introduced to me by my husband. That if you divorce due to an affair and don't know who the other person was, you can demand compensation up until 3 years after you find out. I just informed your husband that I'll be seeking damages for defamation. Nancy's voice cracked with tears. You money grubber! Don't take away my happiness! You're just getting back what you dished out, right? All because she disliked me, she had Ray do her dirty work and torment me. She played the good friend after the divorce, but inside, she was laughing at me. I can't forgive her. I'm not paying any compensation fee! When I was called out to a diner, I had a voice recorder in my bag. I had it turned on for self-defense, but I unexpectedly found out that Nancy was the one Ray had the affair with 3 years ago when we got divorced. I have it recorded, and I'm recording this call as well. It doesn't matter what you say, you'll pay for your actions. If necessary, I intend to use this recording as evidence and make Nancy and Ray pay. There's a business card from a lawyer in the photos I sent you, right? From now on, please contact me through that lawyer. I hang up the phone without listening to Nancy's rebuttal. With the sound of the call ending, I finally felt like I was able to put the divorce 3 years ago behind me. Thanks to the lawyer my husband introduced, I was able to get Ray and Nancy to pay most of the compensation amount I demanded. After Nancy's parents found out about the compensation, they disowned her, and the stalkers stormed Ray's workplace and revealed their affair. Ray lost his social credibility and the support from Nancy's parents. Even now, it seems Ray and Nancy are having a hard time with the stalker from the affair. We just moved, and you had so much going on. My husband sympathized. Despite the trouble I caused him this time, I want to cherish this man who is still kind and smiles at me. I look forward to enjoying the peaceful times that have finally arrived together.